What's up guys? Today we're going to check out 65 on 4K UHD. I'm not going to get into how good or bad the movie is, I'm just going to share some of my thoughts on the audio and video quality. Now let's go over a few tech specs. The movie was shot in 6K. It's got a 4K DI, it's rated PG-13, runtime is 93 minutes, aspect ratio is 239:1, and the audio is in Dolby Atmos. Before we jump into the audio, if you don't know what the Atmos viewer is, you can find a link in the description to the video that tells you all about it. Right from the start, your speakers will all have something to do, and it pretty much remains that way for the entire duration of the movie. At about 6 minutes in, the ship is going to be getting hit by rocks, which you'll hear banging around through all your available speakers, lower and in the high channels. It'll sound like you're inside the ship. At around 14 minutes in, it's got a great sounding rain scene that engulfs you in all directions, as most rainy scenes do. At around 49 minutes, there's a part, which is in the trailer, that tracks the sound of the cave opening as the camera pans around. So you'll hear the rain move from behind you and slowly, clockwise, go from back, left surround, then up front. It's subtle, but it's effective, and it makes it feel like you're turning around inside the cave. As for the bass response, it didn't seem to go subterranean, but it hits real hard and it does have a hefty mid-bass presence. There's a cave collapse, which not only sounds cool in the surround channels, but you'll feel the bass pressurize your room once the cave collapses in. No! I'm sure you already know that there's dinosaurs in this movie, along with T-Rexes. And just like in Jurassic Park, you'll get those huge house rumbling footsteps whenever they're on screen. And of course, explosions are gonna rock your entire home theater. If you're new to the channel and you're into home theater and like to know if a movie is worth playing in your surround setup, or like to know about the latest and greatest in audio and video gear, make sure you tap that subscribe button for new weekly videos. And also, thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube member subscribers for supporting the channel and making this purchase of 65 possible on the Kaleidescape, so I can bring this to you, the home theater movie loving community, this 4K review. If you want to join Patreon or the YouTube membership, you can find links down below in this video's description. As for the video quality, it's another Sony transfer, and typically, Sony doesn't disappoint. And that is also the case here as well. Now, the movie can be really 4K crispy at times, and other times it does have a touch of softness to it. And depending on which lens was being used, you'll see certain shots that are razor sharp and detailed right in the center of the screen, while on the outside of the screen, you'll see a very soft vignette on the outer edges. It's not a problem with the transfer, it's just a stylistic choice. Now there's tons of detail on screen with finely rendered material textures on costumes with great looking textures in the outdoor scenes. You can see just how sharp and detailed the grass and foliage, tree bark, and all that stuff outside is in these outdoor environments. The whole look of the movie kind of reminded me of Chaos Walking, which I also thought was really great looking. Now one thing that can look suspect is the CGI. It's good for the most part, except for a couple dinos, which I'm not sure ever really existed, and there is a goofy scene where Kylo is clearly running in front of a green screen. As for the color palette, it ranges from really natural to having a hint of warmth overall. It's mostly earthy tones with greens and browns, so don't go in expecting large splashes of vivid HDR colors. It's also not a particularly bright movie, but it's also not very dim either. Highlight detail wasn't clipped for the outdoor shots, although black levels were sometimes really great with a lot of enhanced contrast, while other times shadows and lower lit scenes came off more grayish, which could muddy the details. Now it could be an artistic choice, but it is something that I noticed. There's some nice bright specular highlights from explosions, but nothing that I'd say is really going to blow you away. I'd say the HDR is reserved for the most part. Overall, I found this to be a really great looking transfer. It's got that clean digitally shot look if you're not a fan of film grain, and there's plenty of 4K detail. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and give this transfer an 8.5. For audio, I thought it was a knockout. There's a lot of little subtle effects going on in the back channels, which enhances many scenes. And the overall immersion factor from the height channels are both subtle and can be very aggressive. If you're someone that likes sound always, or mostly always, coming out of all your speakers, I think you're gonna have a real good time listening to this movie. So I'm gonna give it a 9.8. Well, those are my thoughts on 65 on 4K on the Kaleidescape. For those wondering, it is a 47 gig file, which I'm sure will be the same for the 4K disc. And my guess is it should look probably exactly the same. If it looks better, I'll come back and re-review it again, but I'm sure it's not gonna be though. So what are your thoughts on 65 on 4K? Have you seen it, and what'd you think of the transfer? Also, what'd you think about the movie? Leave your comment down below and let me know. Now, if you do want to pick up this movie, I'll leave some links for it down below in this video's description. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you want, you can follow us on social media, and if you'd like to support the channel and get exclusive content or great discounts on audio and video gear, then stop by our Patreon page. Be sure to like the video if you found it useful, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you again in the next video.